Hello everyone, welcome back to Vicky's Country Home. This video is going to be a little bit different. This is, I guess, kind of a video response to one of the channels that I watch. And I saw a video come across a few days ago from Appalachia's Homestead with Patara. And the name of it was Homestead's Cost You Will Pay. And she hit the nail right on the head. I'm gonna put a link some below and maybe up here too to her video because it's well worth watching. She hits on some very, very good topics. The reason I decided to make a video response to her video is because I get a lot of comments and suggestions on how to do things, and everyone is so helpful and means well, but sometimes they just don't fit my circumstances because we have very different circumstances. We're in the high desert. There's a lot of things that a whole lot of the homesteaders across the country, even here in the West, they have resources and circumstances that we don't. So I thought it would be helpful to kind of talk about the costs on a homestead and also the costs of being off-grid, because I have been asked so many times in the 11 plus years that we have been in our home off-grid. I've had comments saying, boy, it must be great to have free power. And then you have to educate them. So what I'm going to talk about today is kind of a combination of the two, and I'll explain a little bit as we go along. But no, homestead will cost you. And I don't care what your circumstances are, whether you're in a beautiful wooded area with great soil, if you have chickens for your eggs, animals that you can provide meat with, or even the wild animals. Homesteading is going to cost you. And I think it's really important, whether you already have a homestead or if you're considering getting one or looking for one, consider the costs, because you can easily get in over your head. Very easily. So I'm going to kind of take you around and show you a few things and explain those hidden costs that most people don't think about. So one of the first things is we live in the high desert, as I said. And something that you might notice is we have almost no trees. There are some juniper trees. Most of them are very old. So we don't have wood that we can harvest. And you really don't want to harvest a lot of the juniper just because it's a limited resource. It takes a lot of water and time to grow to these sizes. And as you can see, most of it is a distance away. And my poor little fruit trees, those are several years old. So this is what we're dealing with. So we don't have wood we can harvest, whether it's for firewood or for building or anything else. That's just not something we have. This land was bare when we bought it. There was nothing here. So there weren't any materials that were left over. We had some left over from building our home, but you use those up over time. The little bits of garden that I have there and over here. All of those have required a lot of soil amendment. And this is heavy clay, so you have to amend it. You have to add things to it. If you look at that garden, all of my gardens, we have to put up fencing. And in fact, I need to put up a whole lot more fencing because the deer have been a problem in the last couple years. So those are all costs that you have to consider. And I said we have heavy clay, and we do. It is pure muck when it's wet. So we just had a lot of rain and some snow that's melted. And I want you to look. This happens every year. This is what happens when the ground gets wet. And this is about 4 inches of road base on top of that clay. But it's so soft that the road base just sinks into it, and you will sink into it. So every year we are having to buy more materials to beef up this, and also our roads. They're dirt roads and they are not maintained. So those are a direct cost to us. We have to pay to have it graded, or we have to find another method of doing so, and we've done some of that. But you also have to buy the materials and haul it here, which is a huge expense because of distance and fuel cost. So those are some costs that maybe you have, or maybe you haven't even considered. But in our circumstance, this is a real cost to us. And because this is so dry and there just aren't very many natural harvestable plants here, everything I put in has some cost. Some of that is seeds, because you have to start somewhere, or grapevines, trees, herbs. No matter what, there's a cost to get started, and you can minimize that over time by saving seeds, but you're still going to pay for them. And water is a huge cost to us in a way, because our water comes deep out of the ground and our well is way out there, and that has to be pumped out of there into storage, and then from the storage it has to be pumped into the house to pressurize it. And our water tank is back there behind those solar panels. So then we come to solar. And we have solar and we have wind. And everybody thinks, that is great, you don't have to pay for your power. Well, yeah, we do. We did not intend to be off-grid when we bought this property, but the costs involved of bringing power here were just astronomical, and to bring it a quarter mile. And after doing our research and due diligence, we discovered that basically for the same cost as bringing the power here, we could invest and go off-grid. And that is what we did. We had never done this before. It wasn't what we were planning, but it was financially more feasible to go off-grid. And this is not a small house. I have a pretty large home. So going off-grid for this home was an investment, and it is an investment. Up there is where we get most of our hot water from. And fortunately here in Nevada, we get a lot of sunshine, and that helps. But we still have a lot of days that are cloudy. You look in the sky right now, we have sun, but we've also got a lot of high clouds, and that reduces how much power we're creating. And in the winter, we can have days and days in a row with no sun. And although the wind helps some, it's a small amount of power that we are creating. All of this power has to be stored somewhere. So that required a lot of batteries. And batteries age over time, and that's going to be a huge cost to replace. The water has to be filtered. Those water filters have to be replaced on a regular basis. So these are just some of the things that maybe you're not thinking of when you consider going off grid and what it really means. And Pittara touches on this very well as far as your animals. That's great to get your eggs and possibly some meat, but you have to provide for them. That chicken coop over there was pretty costly. It was our second one. The first one just kind of fell apart because, as she says, people talk about doing these things really cheap, like $1.77 is her example, to make a chicken coop. Well, if you have all your resources and you don't have to put a lot of money into that, that's great. But where did those resources come from? Because they had a cost at some point. The first chicken coop basically fell apart. This was our second one, and we built it to keep the critters out and to last. So that was very costly. You have to provide straw and bedding and nesting and food and scratch and supplements and everything else. Those all cost. So there's a lot of cost to even having your animals. And yes, we have wonderful eggs. So I'm grateful for that. And I love having some self-sufficiency. And it does give us that. The garden. I love having the fresh vegetables. And I plant one every year, and last year it was almost a bust. So that was a cost. And even growing those vegetables, like I said, it requires the seeds, it requires the amendments, it requires water, which is pumping again, which draws out of our battery every time that water pumps. So we are using power, and if that power is not generated by the sun, we will be paying for fuel to run our generator. So there's always a cost. And that road, that driveway and the road, yeah, they're going to cost some more this summer. So now let me show you some of the other things that we look at. That right there is a cost. We love our fireplace, but we do use it for heat. And it does generate heat for a pretty large area in our home. But you have to buy the firewood because, again, we don't have any wood that we can harvest. So that's a cost. I mentioned batteries, and we have batteries that run this huge house, and all the power comes in, gets stored, and then we draw from it. These are just some of our batteries. And I want you to be able to kind of get an idea. They're large. They're probably 2 foot by 2 foot by 10 inches. And you have a whole stack of those. Those batteries are wonderful, but they age. And as they age, they are going to need to be replaced. And they're going to store less, which is what we are seeing now. So that's going to be a very large expense that we have to budget for. We have water filtration, and all of these filter out sediment and all kinds of nasty little things. So we have to replace those filters probably once a year, most of them, and that's a fairly large cost. That's our second pressure pump. and those age. So that's another thing that has to be replaced. Plus, it's a huge power drain, especially at night when we're not producing any power. So we've got a little workaround that Brian put together with an RV pump that will actually pump water to our entire house. So every morning and every night we switch these valves over to use that little RV pump right down there. We switch over to use those at night or when we aren't making power, so that we're not using huge amounts to pump water. Now, we don't get as much pressure, but you know what? It works. So that was another cost. But we also have some savings by doing that. So I hope that enlightened some of you, and maybe it'll help you at least if you're looking to purchase a homestead or to improve your homestead or make decisions, because honestly, everything on your homestead has a cost. We're completely off-grid. There is no infrastructure of any kind coming onto our property physically. We have airwaves, but that's it. So consider all of these things and plan for them. And you need to have some money set aside for the unexpected, because there will always be unexpected costs. You can't plan for everything. You can have backups, which we have tried to do on most things in order to get us by, because when our roads are this bad, we're pretty inaccessible. We just had a failure of one piece of equipment. FedEx, it was shipped to this address by mistake. FedEx won't deliver it. They don't let you know that, but they don't deliver it because they don't want to get stuck or go off the road. So they just don't deliver. And you need to be prepared to take care of yourself and your family in those circumstances. So again, I hope this gives you a little bit of insight. I hope it helps if you are looking into getting your own homestead. Again, go watch Patera's. She has very different surroundings and circumstances from me. And she goes into detail of the things that cost her. And they are very different for the most part. She has a few that are the same. So check us out, and I'm sure there's other videos and information out there. Go do your research. Think about what you want. Think about what you need. And anything you look at, whether it's a property or a piece of equipment, think about the hidden costs and think about what it's going to cost you in the long run, whether through maintenance or fuel or replacement, whatever it is. And I want to just thank you for coming along and watching this, and give me your thoughts. What special different costs do you have? And I have a lot more that I could have gone into, but in order to keep this fairly reasonable video, I'm not going to go through all of them. But share with me and with others what your hidden costs are, so that you can help educate someone else. I want to thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and share. Hit the little notification bell so you know when I upload any videos. God bless, and we'll talk again soon.